The galaxy remembered many wars, but none were like the war against humanity. To the alien coalition, humans were dangerous, too dangerous to be left alive. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. But they were different. They refused to bow. They refused to surrender. Even when outnumbered, they fought with a fire that made the coalition uneasy. And so the Alien Council decided, humanity must be erased. Their fleets came in silence, without warning. First they targeted the colonies at the edge of human space. Bright worlds with farms and cities were burned into ash. No mercy was given. Men, women, and children were all silenced in one night. The coalition wanted no survivors, no witnesses. They moved quickly, destroying communications before cries for help could escape. Then they struck Earth itself. The cradle of humanity, the home of history, was turned into a battlefield. Skies filled with fire as alien warships rained destruction from orbit. Cities crumbled, oceans boiled, forests burned. The Council ordered every trace of human culture destroyed. Libraries were reduced to smoke, archives erased, monuments shattered. It was not just war, it was extermination. The coalition wanted the galaxy to forget humanity had ever lived. In their minds, this was necessary. They believed humans were too unstable, too unpredictable. If allowed to survive, they would rise again, stronger and angrier. The aliens had seen human resilience before. They had seen humans fight with broken weapons, fight even after defeat, fight even when hope was gone. To the Council, that was the most terrifying weapon of all. And so the purge was complete. Or so they thought. Whispers began to move in secret corners. Some traders swore they had seen survivors running into the void. Some soldiers spoke of strange resistance pockets still fighting even after their worlds were destroyed. But the Council dismissed these as rumors. Humanity is gone, they declared. Their name will not be spoken again. 4 years, silence followed. Stars where humans once lived grew cold and empty. Alien settlers moved in, building new cities over the ruins. To them, it was over. The galaxy was safe. But history does not die so easily. In the shadows, in the forgotten ruins, something stirred. Among the ashes of fallen Earth, one human survived. His name was not known. His face was hidden. He was a ghost of war, unseen and unheard. The coalition did not care. To them, one man could not matter. But this man was different. He remembered everything. He remembered the screams as ships fell from the skies. He remembered the burning of cities, the silence of death, the cruelty of those who called themselves the Council. And above all, he remembered the decision to erase humanity as if it never existed. That memory became his fire. He was not a soldier anymore. He was not a citizen, nor a survivor. He became something else, something the galaxy had never seen before. He became a predator. The man hid among the wreckage, scavenging what he could. He learned the patrols of alien ships, their strengths, their weaknesses. He studied their technology, their movements, their fear. Every day he grew sharper, colder, more dangerous. And every night he whispered to himself, "They tried to erase us. But I remain." The coalition never noticed him. Why would they? In their arrogance, they believed their war was perfect. They believed humanity was finished. Yet sometimes, late at night, soldiers spoke of strange things. They spoke of finding missing patrols, ships gone silent, camps raided. They spoke of shadows moving in ruined cities, of eyes watching them from the dark. But when they reported these things, their commanders laughed. "Impossible," they said. "There are no humans left." The ghost smiled in the dark. Their denial was his shield. Their arrogance was his weapon. He would use it against them. For now, he was patient. For now, he waited, learning, preparing. He knew he could not fight an empire in one day. But he also knew a secret the aliens had forgotten. Humanity had always been the weakest at first. But they adapted. They endured. They survived. The galaxy thought humanity was gone forever. But in truth, the galaxy had created something far worse. In trying to erase a species, they had given birth to a hunter. A lone human, silent and unseen, carrying the rage of an entire world. And he would not stop until the galaxy remembered the name they tried to erase. Humanity. He was no longer a man running from death, he was becoming something more, something the galaxy had never faced before. In the beginning he lived like prey, hiding in ruins, feeding on scraps, moving only when shadows covered the land. But with every day that passed he studied his enemies, the way they spoke, the way they fought, and the way they thought. The coalition soldiers walked with pride, never checking the dark corners, never fearing the silence. They believed their victory was complete, that nothing human could survive their purge. They were wrong. The survivor watched them with cold eyes, memorizing every weakness. He learned how their armor locked into place, how their rifles needed a pulse battery that drained too fast, how their ships relied on codes that could be stolen. He was patient, like a wolf watching a herd. He was alone, but his hunger for vengeance gave him strength. The first time he struck it was not loud, not grand, but quiet and deadly. A soldier separated from his patrol was found the next day with his throat cut by a human blade, an ancient weapon that no alien expected. They laughed at first, calling it an accident, a foolish misstep. But then another soldier vanished. And then another. Whispers began to spread among the ranks. Some spoke of a ghost, others of a shadow that hunted them. But no one dared say the word, human. They had been told humans were extinct, that there was nothing left to fear. Yet fear grew all the same. The survivor knew fear was his weapon. He moved silently between destroyed cities and alien camps, taking food, tools, and scraps of technology. He built traps from wires, bombs from stolen fuel cells, knives from broken armor. Each time he struck, he left no trace but death. To the aliens, it seemed like the darkness itself had turned against them. Patrols began to double, camps built higher walls, soldiers carried heavier weapons. But none of it stopped the shadow. He learned faster than they could adapt. When they added lights, he attacked from the dark skies above. When they used scanners, he buried himself beneath ruins where their machines could not see. Every move they made taught him something new, and every failure made him stronger. Slowly, he stopped thinking like a man and started thinking like a predator. He was not defending himself anymore. He was hunting. And he enjoyed the hunt. The coalition commanders tried to silence the rumors, calling their soldiers weak for believing in ghosts. But soldiers who lived in the ruins whispered in secret. They spoke of footsteps that followed them at night, of eyes glowing faintly in the dark, of strange messages carved into walls. You tried to erase us. No soldier admitted it aloud, but they all felt the same chill, the same thought pressing into their minds. What if a human survived? The survivor felt their fear growing, and it pleased him. Every world he passed through became quieter, every patrol weaker. He did not attack blindly. He chose carefully, striking only when the enemy was most vulnerable, when he could escape unseen. Sometimes he left one survivor behind, shaking and broken, to spread the story. Soon those stories reached further than the commanders could control. They gave him a name, whispered in fear. Some called him the ghost of Earth. Others called him the human that would not die. But he called himself nothing. He had no need for a name. He was what they had created, a predator. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. His body grew stronger, his mind sharper. He learned to fly stolen ships, to reprogram alien weapons, to use their technology against them. But even as he advanced, he never forgot the simple blade, the simple traps, the silent strike in the night. He knew the galaxy would not fear guns or bombs. It would fear the unseen, the unknown, the thing they could not stop. And he was becoming that thing. One night, he stood on the ruins of a burned city, looking at the stars above. Somewhere out there sat the council who had decided to erase his people. They believed they were safe, protected by fleets and armies. He clenched his stolen rifle and whispered into the silence. "I am coming." The hunt had only begun. The galaxy thought humanity was prey, weak and gone. But prey was learning. Prey was changing. Prey was becoming the hunter. And soon, the galaxy would know the truth. You cannot erase humanity, because even one human is enough to bring fear to empires. The Shadow had watched long enough, studied long enough, prepared long enough, and now the time had come to strike. For months he had moved unseen, cutting down patrols and spreading whispers of fear, but whispers were not enough. He needed the galaxy to know that humanity was not gone, that their attempt to erase his people had failed, and that a single survivor could shake an empire. His chance came when he discovered a small outpost on a captured human colony, a mining station guarded by soldiers who believed they were safe. The aliens had grown lazy, their routines predictable, their defenses weak. To them this outpost was nothing more than a resource hub, but to him it was the perfect place to send a message. He scouted for days, watching the shifts, memorizing the codes, learning how fuel cells were moved and how weapons were stored. Then, under the cover of darkness, he slipped inside. His tools were crude, built from scavenged parts and stolen alien tech, but his mind was sharp and his resolve unbroken. He planted charges where fuel was stored, set traps in corridors, and cut the power to their outer defenses. When the first explosion tore through the outpost, the soldiers panicked, thinking it was an accident. But then the second blast came, and the third, and in the smoke and chaos they saw a figure moving between shadows, striking with precision. He did not roar or scream, he did not announce himself, he simply hunted them one by one. A blade across the throat, a stolen rifle shot to the chest, a tripwire that sent 3 soldiers into flames. Within minutes the outpost that had seemed safe was drowning in blood and fire. Survivors ran for their ships, but found the docking bay destroyed, their vessels turned to twisted metal. Those who tried to send distress signals discovered the communications had been cut long before the attack began. There was no escape. They were trapped with the very thing they thought extinct. And then he spoke for the first time, his voice carried through the hacked comms of the base. "You tried to erase us. But humanity does not vanish. I am the proof." His words froze every soldier in terror, for they knew what he was. Not a ghost, not a shadow, but a human. Their fear turned to chaos as discipline collapsed. Some dropped their weapons and begged for mercy, but he showed none. Mercy had died with his people. Others tried to fight back, but their shots struck only empty halls and shifting smoke. He was faster, smarter, more ruthless. By dawn the outpost was nothing but ruins, its garrison gone, its walls broken, its fires burning high enough for ships in orbit to see. And he made sure they did. He left no survivors except for one, a trembling officer bound in chains, forced to watch the destruction. To this officer he gave a simple task: spread the truth. Tell the council. Tell the fleets. Tell the galaxy that humanity still lived, that humanity hunted them now, and that no world was safe. The officer was released into the stars with nothing but fear in his eyes, and the sound of the survivors' words burned into his mind. As the man disappeared back into the shadows, the rumors spread like wildfire. Ships passing near the ruined outpost spoke of flames still rising, of walls carved with human words, of messages scrawled in blood. "We are not gone." The coalition scrambled for answers. Commanders argued whether it was a trick, a false flag planted by rivals, or perhaps an accident. But the soldiers on the ground knew the truth, for they had seen the predator in the dark. They had felt the terror of being hunted. And soon every corner of the galaxy began to whisper the same thing: humanity had returned. The survivor, watching from afar, felt no pride and no joy, only the cold satisfaction of his mission. This was only the beginning. The galaxy now knew his people could not be erased. They had tried to make humans prey, but instead they had created the deadliest predator the stars had ever seen. And with his first strike complete, he was ready for the war to come. The outpost was only the beginning, and the survivor knew it, but the galaxy did not understand what had been unleashed until the stories began to spread like a plague. One station destroyed, one garrison erased, one soldier left alive to speak of a human who moved like a shadow and struck like death itself. and soon the fear reached every corner of the coalition. Commanders denied it, politicians dismissed it, and the council declared that the incident was nothing more than sabotage, yet their words carried no weight against the growing terror in the hearts of their soldiers. Ships refused to patrol human ruins, colonies demanded more protection, and whispers of the human ghost echoed in every barracks. The survivor used their fear as his greatest weapon. He did not need massive fleets or armies. He needed only their minds, their paranoia, their dread. He began to strike at random across the stars, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. A mining ship here, a patrol convoy there, a supply depot turned to fire overnight, always with the same calling card carved into walls or broadcast into comms: "You tried to erase us." Each attack was small compared to the wars the coalition had fought before, but each one felt larger because no one knew where the predator would strike next. Entire fleets were dispatched to hunt him, yet each time they arrived, they found only ashes and silence. The survivors studied their pursuit, learning how to stay ahead, turning their traps into his opportunities. When they set ambushes, he struck from the opposite direction. When they spread their fleets wide, he slipped between them. It was as if he was always watching, always waiting, always one step ahead. Fear turned into obsession. Some commanders grew reckless, chasing shadows and wasting resources. Others turned cruel, punishing their own soldiers for failing to catch a single man. The council argued in secret chambers, wondering how one human could shake their entire order. They had destroyed Earth, burned the colonies, erased the history, yet here was proof that their work had failed. Their arrogance had left one survivor, and that survivor was enough to ignite chaos across the stars. On the ground, soldiers began refusing orders. Some claimed they heard whispers in the dark, others swore they saw eyes glowing red in ruined cities, and some even abandoned their posts altogether. The fear was worse than any weapon. The survivor knew this and fed it carefully, making sure every strike was more frightening than the last. In one raid, he left an outpost intact but filled with the bodies of its garrison, every soldier silenced in their sleep without a sound of struggle. In another, he left weapons missing, ships vanished, and strange human words painted on walls where no one could explain how he entered. To the coalition it seemed impossible, almost supernatural, and that made the terror even greater. The whispers grew into legends. Some began to say humanity had not been destroyed at all, that countless survivors hid in the shadows waiting to rise. Others claimed the survivor was not a man but a monster created from human rage, an unstoppable beast that could not die. No story was the same, but all carried the same truth: the galaxy was no longer safe. The coalition, once united in victory, now began to fracture. Races who had once marched together against humanity started to doubt one another. If one human could survive, how many more could be hidden? If one human could strike so hard, what if entire fleets returned? Trust broke, alliances cracked, and the council's grip weakened. The survivor watched from the darkness, knowing the fear was spreading exactly as he planned. He needed no allies, no army, for he had the most powerful weapon of all, the memory of humanity. And as long as the aliens remembered what they had done, as long as they felt the guilt of their attempted erasure, the fear would never leave them. He moved from star to star, leaving only ruins and rumors behind, and with every new story the legend grew. They no longer called him a ghost. They no longer laughed at the idea of humans. They gave him a new name, whispered with trembling voices: the apex predator. And though they spoke it with fear, he carried it with cold purpose, for that was what they had created when they tried to erase his people. The galaxy had faced wars before, but never a war like this, never a war waged by only one man. The survivor had transformed from a shadow in ruins into a living nightmare that haunted fleets and worlds alike. His strikes had grown bolder, his reach wider, until no corner of coalition space felt safe. He was not fighting for survival anymore, he was fighting for vengeance, and his war was clever, ruthless, and relentless. He stole ships, reprogrammed their systems, and turned them into weapons against their own masters. A patrol vessel captured by his hands would later return as a burning comet, crashing into a supply station. A freighter filled with stolen weapons disappeared from its convoy only to reappear weeks later, bombarding an unsuspecting colony before vanishing once more into the dark. Every move he made sent shockwaves through the coalition. Commanders demanded answers, fleets scrambled to respond, but by the time they arrived the human was gone, leaving only wreckage and the words he had carved into steel and stone, "You tried to erase us." Each message spread like poison. Soldiers lost sleep, captains hesitated to travel through certain sectors, and civilians whispered in terror that the human predator was coming for them next. He was no longer a rumor, no longer a ghost. He was war itself. And the coalition, with all its fleets and armies, could not stop him. They tried hunting him with small strike groups, but he tore them apart one by one. They tried setting traps with baited colonies and fake transmissions, but he saw through their lies and struck from another angle. They tried mass fleets, overwhelming numbers, but he never fought them head-on. He bled them slowly, cut their supply lines, ambushed their reinforcements, crippled their fuel convoys. Every ship that burned, every depot that fell, reminded them that the galaxy's most dangerous enemy was not an army but one human with nothing left to lose. The survivor had become a master of guerrilla war. He used their technology against them, but he also remembered the old ways of humanity, the patience of the hunter, the cunning of the survivor. He moved through asteroid fields where no alien would dare follow, hid in the shadows of black holes, and cloaked himself in the debris of ruined battles. Wherever they thought him weakest, he was strongest. Wherever they thought him gone, he returned with fire. And with each strike the fear of humanity grew larger than life itself. Soon races within the coalition began to fight among themselves. Accusations flew like sparks, one species blaming another for allowing the human to survive, another accusing rivals of secretly helping him. Old grudges resurfaced, and the once united council began to fracture under the weight of distrust. The survivor watched from the dark, pleased with the chaos. He did not need to destroy them all with his own hands. He only needed to push them, to break their unity, and they would tear each other apart. But he did not stop. His war was constant. He attacked shipyards and left them silent. He hijacked communications and broadcast the screams of captured officers. He infiltrated council broadcasts with a single haunting line, "Humanity remembers." The coalition tried to silence him, to block the signals, but it was too late. Every soldier in every fleet had heard the voice, every world had heard the name. Humanity, the species they had tried to erase, had returned in the form of one unstoppable predator. The survivor knew he was only one man, but he carried the weight of billions who had been lost. He fought not as a soldier, not as a rebel, but as the embodiment of vengeance itself. His war was not about survival anymore, it was about rewriting history. The galaxy had written humanity out of its story, but with every fire, every strike, every whisper of his name, he was carving humanity back into the stars. And the council realized with horror that this war of one was more dangerous than any war of millions. The war of one had shattered fleets, broken alliances, and spread fear across every star, but the survivor knew his mission was not yet complete, for the council still sat in their high chambers believing they ruled the galaxy, believing that one human could not truly threaten them, believing their order would last forever. He decided it was time to show them the truth. With stolen ships and captured codes he infiltrated their core world, slipping past defenses that no alien thought could be breached, and there in the heart of their empire he struck with fire and steel. The council chambers that had once declared the extermination of humanity now trembled as alarms blared and flames filled the skies above their capital. Soldiers rushed to stop him, fleets scrambled into orbit, but it was too late, for he had prepared this strike for months, gathering weapons, hacking networks, and planting agents of fear among their own. He appeared before the council at last, dragging their guards in chains, his human face hardened by years of war, his eyes burning with the fire of billions who had been silenced. The councillors stared in disbelief, some trembling, some denying what they saw, but none able to look away. He spoke with a voice that echoed across their comms, across their worlds, across their empire. "You tried to erase us. You burned our homes, you destroyed our worlds, you thought we would vanish. But humanity does not vanish. Humanity adapts. Humanity endures. And humanity hunts." His words were carried across the stars, broadcast to soldiers, civilians, and rulers alike. For the first time the galaxy heard a human speak since the Purge, and the sound alone was enough to strike terror into their hearts. The survivor revealed what the council feared most, that he was not alone. From hidden refuges, from forgotten ruins, from the dark corners of the galaxy, other humans began to rise, survivors who had been scattered but not broken, inspired by the legend of the apex predator. They had seen his war, heard his voice, and now they joined him. Small at first, but growing stronger, fleets once thought impossible began to appear, human warships rebuilt from scraps and stolen alien steel. Humanity, the species declared extinct, was returning, not as victims, but as conquerors. The Council realized with horror that their extermination had failed not only because one man survived, but because that one man had lit a fire too great to extinguish. Across the galaxy, rebels from oppressed worlds rose as well, emboldened by the human who had fought alone against an empire. Species that once cheered the purge now questioned their loyalty, wondering if perhaps humanity had been right to resist. Fear turned to chaos, chaos to rebellion, rebellion to collapse. And at the center of it all stood the survivor, the hunter, the predator, now no longer a lone shadow but the symbol of an entire race. He did not ask for mercy, he did not negotiate, he did not forgive. He delivered his judgment with steel and fire. You wanted humanity erased, he told the trembling counselors as human banners rose again above captured cities, but now humanity will be remembered as the apex of the galaxy. One by one the coalition worlds fell, some to human strikes, others to their own fear and rebellion. The legend of the apex predator spread until it was no longer legend but history itself. Humanity had returned, forged in fire, hardened in blood, unstoppable in their hunger to survive. And the survivor who began it all, the lone human who refused to die, became the symbol written into every alien memory, the proof that you cannot erase what refuses to be forgotten. The council that had ordered extermination knelt in chains, their empire shattered, their pride broken, and the galaxy finally understood the truth. They had tried to erase humanity, but in doing so they had created the most dangerous predator the stars had ever known. And now that predator was no longer one man but an entire species rising from the ashes, a species that would never again be underestimated, a species that carved its name into the stars with vengeance and with power. Humanity had risen as the apex predator, and the galaxy would never forget it.